It may feel that way. Yeah, I hear you. Piles are important.
All right, well, I think probably get started. We've got one more person, but I'm sure they'll make their way back in here.
Alrighty.
Great, and just so you know, perfect. This is what's recording our sound, so.
Okay, terrific. And if I stand, is that okay?
Yeah,
Or do you want me?
okay,
Okay,
great. No, you're
terrific. I didn't know if
do whatever you want,
were-
just if you're gonna be far away from it, yeah.
Great.
You should use your voice.
I can do that too. Well, hi, everyone. I'm going to send around a handout as well. And really, that is one of the first indicators to hopefully model a little bit of what I'm going to refer to today. And also, I'll be back again on Thursday morning to talk about some issues of differentiation. And so differentiation obviously begins with that whole notion of knowing your learners and the learning styles. And there certainly may be some in this room that are thinking, oh no, not paper. We don't do paper anymore. I'm opposed to paper. I won't have a piece of paper. But you also know you have learners who need a piece of paper. And they're going to hear it and hang on to it a little bit better if they can scribe some notes, or they can, so again, trying to get at this whole notion that we talked about in your introduction. So many of you did such a nice job of saying those things about I want to do it better. Well, I ask you on day one of time together to just take a little bit of a step back too, and the wonderful words I heard so many of you say about I want to learn how to do this. I've never done this before. I have done this for 20 years. I've done this, I heard over here, way more than 20. Wherever you are in that process, I ask you on day one to just take a step back and a deep breath and think, you know, kind of remember doing that. Yeah, there's been that, but look at this just from a fresh perspective of what will fit and what will not. And you know, I absolutely loved our last couple, loved all the introductions, but the last couple introductions, I thought, Adelina, I could relate perfectly to you. A few years ago, in the field of special education, we were putting all of our courses online in the program, and people were signing up for the different courses they teach, and there was one course that no one would touch. And I know why, because I didn't want to touch it either. And I know the content. So this content was methods for individuals with severe and profound disabilities. and I've taught the course before, and it's a lot of stuff on some of the basics of positioning and handling and feeding. And you can see I talk a lot with my hands, and I would do that. I know help individuals with lip control, and I kept thinking, online, are you kidding me? I have to say, honestly, it's maybe ranks as one of it definitely was the most fulfilling course I've ever taught, and maybe one of the best. And also I will say that with the journey of folks in CU Online helping me, because I didn't think I could do it, and actually I didn't think I could do it, were words that were used in one of the 3 manuscripts that came out of that course. So those of you that are thinking along those lines too, it can be done. I started to say the word easily, and it isn't easy, but I think that fresh perspective and stepping back help a lot. And it really is dependent on getting started with backwards mapping. And so we'll move on to the next slide, because today, in this brief, about 50 minutes that I have left with you, I want to talk just a little bit and have you think about articulating the essential elements of a backwards design model. I'm sure many, if not all of you, have heard that phrase, and you think maybe you use it. Let's talk a little bit about the rationale for why. I also want to get in, I heard several people in their introductions say, I need my classes to be more engaging. I want them to get and hold students. And so we will talk about just a couple today, evidence-based instructional strategies that have been proven to enhance both instruction and experiences. And that's important, that balance, because we want our students to learn. So how can this approach help with the instruction, the what is being delivered, while also really helping with the experiences that are going on day to day? And thirdly, I'd like to encourage, in the next little bit of time, helping you think about prioritizing your own enhancements. What's a something or some things that you can walk away with? And so with that, we'll move on. And I'd like to just cover a little bit of the rationale of the why, because I think we all fall into these categories. And I certainly know I have, and I'm being honest with you, I come to you from the School of Education. We're the ones that teach about teaching. That's our whole field. And I know for a fact that there have been times where I used kind of a forward design, that typical course design, where instructors first consider the learning activities. Okay, they need to do this, this, and this. They got to do those 3 things, okay? And how to teach that content. And then typically what instructors do is say, okay, well, I'm teaching this. These are 3 really big buckets that are so important to my field. Okay, got those 3 buckets. How am I going to assess those buckets, that activity? And I'm thinking, oh, Kenny Wolf, those of you that have worked with Kenny, and a good rubric. Okay, I'm going to use this, or maybe it's a team project. Is it a midterm and a final? Is it weekly quizzes? Is it? We'll talk about that. And then attempt to draw those connections between my buckets. That's forward design, and that is very difficult. That happens many times. And I know, as someone that knows better, that I have definitely designed new courses using forward design. And I will say, I'll give you the syllabus that's been used. Or as chair of the program, that used to be one of the very first things I would do with an adjunct that we were pulling in to teach a course at the last minute. Here it is, you know.
I think that's like, it's just a few minutes sometimes when you That's a worst case scenario.
Oh, yeah, and class starts Monday, and here it is. So we know lots of worst case scenarios. Here we are in this wonderful camp situation now to not only do it ourselves, but I heard many of you in your introductions, you're in such important leadership roles on these two wonderful campuses. And so the impact you will have is tremendous. And so, backwards design, what are we talking about there? Well, we're flipping it around. It has instructors consider the learning goals of the course first. The knowledge and the skills that we need our students to learn when they leave this course. Some of those are our professional standards. Some of those are part of the curriculum mapping that you'll hear about later in this camp in terms of what's happening. I'm looking at Wendy because she's really been involved in this with a whole new program. What's happening in this course versus this course. And where should there be, first off, across all, let's say 6 of the courses, where are the gaps? But where are the intentional overlaps? Overlap is a good thing. Sometimes overlap is a little abused. I mean, unfortunately, we have probably heard some students convey a message of, got that, what am I paying tuition for this class? I already got that stuff. So where is the intentional overlap? So that knowledge and skills that they should learn. And sometimes, most times, those skills should be scaffolded, which that informs where my overlap needs to be. I'm going to introduce it in my class, but Richard is going to develop it more in his class, and Evelina will really be assessing it at a much deeper level in her class. So I loved a couple of you saying, I want to get stuff from this couple days and take it back. What can I? So boy, that's an important message to be taking back. You'll hear later this afternoon about some information on that with outcomes from Margaret. So again, the goals, and then those learning goals, it's the goals that ought to inform the consideration for assessment, which then is going to drive what are we going to do in class. The cart and the horse. Backward design is a more intentional approach to course design. It is not big target on the wall and, you know, I kind of throw it and think, well, where does it, hope they get the stuff in this class. Hope this class makes a difference. There ought to be no hope in this. Backward design helps to eliminate hope, and it's intentional. So moving on with that, I wanted to also just share a couple of my idols in the field. If you haven't looked into the information by Wiggins and McTee, I would highly recommend it. Start even with a Google, and a couple videos of their work will show up. But I love that book, Understanding by Design. Within that book, I pulled out a quote that I think is a good one. Deliberate and focused instructional design requires instructors and curriculum writers to make an important shift in our thinking about the nature of our job. The shift involves thinking a great deal first about the specific learning sought and the evidence of such learning before thinking about what we as the teacher will do or provide in the teaching or those learning activities. You know, as I said, let's all give ourselves permission on day one to just step back a little bit and be open. And you may have already heard this, maybe that book is on your bookshelf and you thought, yeah, I know about backwards design. I just ask you to re-look at it, to look at it from a fresh perspective. Because, and we'll flip to the next one here, the research has shown, and data's been collected on this approach, that these three big points. Backwards design innately encourages that intentionality. And that's what I mean by getting rid of the bullseye, the hoping they get it in my class. I hope they leave with passion about my field, about this discipline. Don't just hope it. Intentionally plan it. Also, it's so wonderful to have help, to have tools. That's what a good backward design looks like. That point number 2, it provides the guidance for instruction and designing lessons or units or courses, wherever we're at with it. Once that learning goal or desired results have been identified, you'll have an easier time developing the assessments. So again, the cart and the horse. Have yourself hold off on that fabulous rubric that somebody developed and I'm going to use. I'm not saying don't use it. Hold off on it just a little bit. And look at those, the goals. Backward design lends itself to transparency. It is explicit instruction. There's the nose on my face. That's this course. Here's the goal. This is what I'm going to do. So the number of you that when you introduced yourself, you said you're going to take this back to your program or continuing ed, or somebody said, what was it, 22 other people that do the instruction. Someone used a number.
44.
What was it?
44.
Oh gosh, sorry, I cut it in half. And it's 44. Who are they?
Volunteer facilitators that are in a hybrid use of materials.
Okay. Boy, is that transparency ever important. You know, so you don't start hearing those messages of, you know, well, I was in Amy's section, not Donna's. We don't do, Amy's section did da-da-da-da. You want it clear. And you know, I'm a big understander. Make up a word here for you. Boy, our students are paying a lot of money in tuition. We all know that. I mean, and now, how many of you, speaking from the word of a parent that's paid now 2 tuitions at CU, they need to get their money's worth. They need to have that time be valuable. All of those kinds of things. It can't be haphazard. They need to be told what they're going to learn, that transparency. And explicit instruction. It diminishes the possibility of doing certain activities and tasks just for the sake of doing them. And I'm looking, honestly, I'm pointing the finger right at myself because there are things I know. Before I came to the university, I worked for the State Department, and my job with a team of these 2 incredible men, our team of 3, was to travel around to the worst mental institutions in the country, and we were always given 30 days to figure out if it could be cleaned up or closed down. A fascinating job. It was so fascinating, I loved it, and I saw amazing things in that job. Every one of my stories do not need to be shared in class. Every one of those experiences don't need to be. Now, I had to work on myself with that because as you've probably seen in our first 20 minutes together, I tend to be a storyteller in my approach to teaching. And so what goes and what does not, what has a purpose that is strategically aligned with that overarching goal? Questions or comments about the provided rationale? Yeah.
I do. I have a question. I mean, the transparency, to what extent? I mean, I'm coming from a place of including hips and outcomes and spelling them out on the syllabi and on the syllabi for the courses. And I often wonder, I mean, I think there's a way to do that in a way that's bulleted and not expansive. So to the extent that I've heard some people use transparency, you're going to learn this, and this is how exactly you're going to learn it, and then you will be able to do this. And so I struggle with all of that information, and then where is this process of learning that's organic?
I agree with you completely, and I think, the going with the flow, a comment that emerges that to me signals the need for a whole different reading for tomorrow's class, next week's class, that wasn't explicitly in the syllabus, but I was organic, it appeared. And I agree with you completely about work that can be done, and maybe we can show some models over these next couple days too, of a synthesized table. You're right, some bullets, not 18 pages. I wrote it and I'm probably the only person that's gonna read it of those 18 pages. So where do we cut to the chase? Where do we say some of this information? In an aligned manner, but synthesized. Yeah.
For the one course I'm helping to develop, one thing I think we've struggled with is, and it's a graduate level course, is that kind of basic, like what can we assume the students are coming in with, given whatever is a prereq, and so kind of how that fits into the curriculum design. Like if we have some goals that are too high level, that are not part of the prerequisites, then how do we get there?
Yeah. These are great questions, and thank you for asking. And let's keep coming back to that, because I think that really is the essence of strategic planning. With this, like, how do I still allow for, encourage, and support the organicness of classes, while also how do I move forward to meet the goals of this class, and oops, some of this other skill development is not there.
Yeah.
So how am I thoughtfully understanding what that means? I'm the one crafting this course. So what are those skills that need to be in? And are some of them in a prerequisite course? Yeah. Are some of them skill development that I expect people to hold, to be able to be in this room, in this class, and have these conversations? Yeah, great. Well, let's keep coming back to this more, and I think more and more what I'm hearing too is a reason for backward design. Yes, Daryl, comment?
Yes, I have a question. As I was thinking about, I started teaching 2 online classes yesterday. So it's very fresh in my mind, the goals that I posted. And I'm wondering, how long should the goals be? Because I'm thinking that I think I went overboard in my ethics class. You will do this, you will do this.
Yeah.
Any, I don't know, general comments?
First off, let me acknowledge the insightfulness of that question, because I think too, how big, is that goal ever attainable? I mean, is that not something I should always be, and you get into complex content, which I know you teach too, and ethics and communication and those sorts of understanding. Is this really attainable? And how do I say that to students about this being a lifelong aim? But in the next 6 weeks, in this intense summer course, we're going to work on this and this part of the goal.
How many of the goals, because as you're talking, I guess I've never broken it down. One of the goals, you will know the difference between ethics and the law. Big distinction.
Sure.
What is the difference between philosophical ethics and religious ethics? I hope that, but that takes like 1 or 2 weeks. But then there are long range goals. What is your own, I use the word exemplar, what is your own exemplary standard? Those are big differences.
Yeah.
Are there any suggestions? Because as I'm thinking about it, I just threw those in there, but those are very different types of goals.
Those are different types of goals. And Daryl, to the extent possible, I would just recommend you giving exactly what you're doing right now. Like you said, you walked out of class yesterday thinking, wow. And I hope you're reflecting on that, not just reflecting on it, but recording it, writing that note down. And when you go back into class the next time, next Monday or whenever, how are you following up on it? How does that inform what's going to happen in your next syllabus? Because I think, again, many of those goals are lifelong goals. So we're going to, kind of like that, someone mentioned earlier all the work with HIPS lately and so forth. But again, with HIPS, we know, are we talking about this? Are we just introducing it at this level? Are we really developing it and doing something with it in this class? Or is this a capstone course and you're really demonstrating proficiency? So maybe using that sort of tactic there as well, Daryl, and articulating with your goals that they're all goals, but is something being achieved at a mastery level in this class? Or is it introductory? Gets to that too. So, oh, I'm sorry. Someone else? Let me jump ahead a little bit.
She asked what are HIPS?
Oh, what are HIPS? Oh, I'm sorry. High impact practices. And that has been a massive initiative and undertaking on our campus this year. So it is nationally supported, recommended practices, such as those of you that are teaching HIP classes. What is it? Give me an example of a HIP.
Of the group projects.
That we do group projects. Yep. What are some others? Service learning. Yep. What are some others? I mean, who's from, communications?
Yeah, so we have service learning, experiential learning, group projects. There's a writing proficiency, so if it's it develops writing to a certain level of mastery, capstone courses. So they're identified at least 6 to 8 that I can think of that are high impact practices. Community engagement, yes.
Isn't like first year engagement courses, isn't that one of the?
That is one of them,
Yeah.
but there are many even graduate courses and capstone courses. So again, high impact practices. And if you want more information, I'm an email away with more readings than,
Yeah.
So with this one, let me jump ahead and I talk to you just a little bit about, let's keep going. Let's dig into it. Dig into it with 3 steps. So it is identify those desired results, determine acceptable evidence, and plan those learning experiences and instructions. So let's dig in now to those steps a little bit. Stage 1, step 1, identify desired results. And let me just say, much of my wording up here and planning was very, very much informed by the Wiggins and McTee work that I referred to earlier. So nothing taken directly from them, but very informed by their work. And so I love the questions that were actually, I reworked some of them, but boy, Wiggins and McTee really got me thinking about questions to ask myself, such as, what should students hear, or read, or view, or explore, or otherwise encounter in my class? This is going to help me get to the results. What knowledge and skills should they be mastering? Versus, I'm going back to Daryl for a moment, which maybe not master, but be introduced to. And thirdly, what are those really big ideas and important enduring understandings that students should retain? You want them walking away holding on to this. And I will sometimes tell that to students in class. Pay attention right now. This is a really, really good stuff. Your life will not be complete. You don't get this nugget. Okay, but what is that? Because come on, it isn't every word that comes out of our mouth. It isn't every ounce of every reading, but there's some kernels in that reading. And next, so that's stage 1. Moving us along just a little bit. I'll go back one slide,
sure,
just a minute, Amy, because I love this. Think about it as sort of this diagram. It's worth being familiar with. It's good stuff. That extra story that I was going to throw in about 3 o'clock in the morning when I would go to visit staff then and see what was going on those units. Is that really helping with the goal right now? Or is that just worth being familiar with? As opposed to important to know or leaving you with those enduring understandings. Where am I going with this one now? Okay? And so with that, that worth being familiar with, how do I distinguish that part of that circle, that diagram, from the important or the enduring understandings? Because, it's all important to me. So it should be important to this class. Well, here's a couple questions that I'm posing to all of you to just really ask yourself. Really dig into it. And I ask you to ask someone else too. I ask you in even some of our breaks in the next 2 days and lunch, as you cook up, please sit with some other people, talk to someone about your class. And when you're doing that with each other, ask some of these questions. Don't do it with your best friend, colleague whose office is right next door and knows it just like you do. But get those perspectives. To what extent, ask your colleague, because you're going to be asking yourselves this, to what extent does that information, that topic, and I hear that all the time about hips. How can I get that in a class when the class is already this big? How do I figure that one out? Well, what does it represent, that big idea? Having enduring understanding beyond this course. How does it reside at the heart of the discipline? Really gets there. Represent what a lot of there's other researchers that really have collected data on backward design, and a couple of the researchers have come up with that word uncoverage. And I first read it and I had to go back and read it a couple more times. I didn't know what that meant. What is uncoverage? And really what the researchers were looking at is this notion of representing information that isn't already covered. Is it covered earlier in the class, later, towards the end? Is it really covered in that reading? I don't need it here. I don't need PowerPoint slides on it because it was already here or there. There's a lot of duplication. Again, sometimes important duplication, that whole idea of gaps and overlaps. How much does it represent a strategically intended, there we go, gap and overlap? And does it hold potential for, being so boring? Come on. Or is there engagement? How am I getting a hook in there? And so with that, let's move to stage 2. I'm moving right along, but again, please ask me questions or interrupt me if I'm moving too fast, but don't want to get you behind schedule on morning of day 1. So, alrighty. So that stage number 2, as I referenced it earlier, we're talking about evidence. So if you stop, please, and turn to someone, 2 or 3 people real quickly, and just name real quickly your laundry list. How do you get evidence? What are you using? Quickly, turn to somebody. What are the
Where they're at.
Coming back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 more sentence. Second there. And here we are, back again. Throw me out some ideas. How do you accept have acceptable evidence of student understanding and proficiency? Give me some ideas. Case studies, okay. Who else? What are you using?
To make sure that they're not just regurgitating the material, I make them write a dialogue between two people where one defends it, one attacks it.
Great.
If they can write a dialogue, they understand it. Anybody
Oh,
can
I
regurgitate.
love Siskel and Ebert
Yeah.
and those opinions and yeah, a version of other ideas. Yes.
We have Zoom chats
Oh.
to test their oral skills, so we have conversations.
In Spanish, we were talking about that earlier. Yeah, great.
Team project report.
Project reports.
I bring same topic, but I bring the literature, they have to read it, but the results are different. So they need to discuss which one is telling the truth.
Oh, I like that too. I'd like to see that. Yeah, good. All righty.
Presentations in class.
Uh-huh, stand up and do it and say it. Yeah, excellent. Great. Boy, think about, I mean, this is also, I think, one of the fun parts of our job. As we design this and start figuring it out, and how does this stuff, and you didn't even cover these, every one of the examples that were discussed were different from my little list right there. And how do they genuinely link right to those goals? Where is it? So here's the goals. Here's how I'm going to assess it. How will I know if they've reached that desired result? And then we'll go on from stage 2 to 3. Okay, now I start planning all those activities and experiences. Because this is up here. This is how I know they're going to achieve it. So how do I start to get there? So we're going to dig into this just a little bit today. And really, because again, I heard several people in their introduction talk about, I want to make my class better. I want it engaging. I want to hold students to it. And so that certainly is possible. And as I said, in my experience with that one class, not just possible, but very, very doable. That then you come up with what I think is really the fun stuff, the great stuff about teaching.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's I don't know the experience of people here. Because that's when I come to student about this technology thing, they don't know it. And actually, there's an article written by University of Michigan, the dental school, that they started doing a survey. They found out that faculty, we assume the students, because they're younger, they know technology, but they don't.
Yeah.
And for us, I even created a PowerPoint template so they can copy paste because they know how to do it.
Good, good. And those are areas that our colleagues in CU Online can be extraordinarily helpful with. You know, if I think that exists or I'm concerned about it, are there pre-assessment surveys or tutorials or things that you're going to require or that students take? And that is very, very, very appropriate comment. And, you know, I think the field is becoming a little bit less concerned about people having access to their own laptop, but it's still an issue. Not everyone has a laptop. And so, again, looking at issues of access and, some sort of pre-assessment of skill development. Amy, that is certainly something CU Online can help with.
Oh, absolutely. We can either help you develop it. We have a few things. We can come to your class and teach your students how to use the technology in a face-to-face course, or can zoom into your, record a video for you, or do a live Zoom with your online class on how to use the technology.
But take advantage of that, because the last thing you want in the world is 3 weeks into the semester hearing, I didn't know where the chat room was, or I didn't know, what do you mean the Dropbox of yeah.
We just did two Canvas Basics for Students webinars on Monday. One at 9 a.m., one at 4:30 that were live with one of us. And we do that every semester.
Great. So let's tackle it where we need to, indeed. So stage 3, those learning experiences. asking yourself some of these kinds of questions. And I'm not going to read through every one. You've got it in front of you. And I'm asking you to use these later in talking to your peers. Tell me about that. What are the materials and resources best suited to accomplish this? Do I need to go to the chair and ask for some more money for this or for that? So again, stage 3, planning those learning experiences and instruction. And as I said, this is what's key in the backward versus the forward design. All too often, it's this that people start with. And then the train just never, it's so off the track that it doesn't even get back on the track. So let's dig into, go ahead, yeah, thanks Amy, right there. I wanted to spend just a few minutes here on those, just a couple. There's a whole bunch more, and I come to the Center for Faculty Development for more help or intense help with any of these. But I am sure, show of hands, how many of you at some point in your class, in class, online, hybrid, face-to-face, are using large and or group discussions? I think we have every hand. Oh, please look at it. Look at that. I asked one little question and we all put our hand up on that one. There is a lot of bang for the buck on discussions. There is a lot. And I'll cover a couple little points here today, but boy, think about the work just on that topic. Those of you that are leading whole programs, and in terms of 44 also facilitators that are doing this. So give you a couple ideas here, but that is an area that warrants significant attention. My bang and now my buck. Where are those discussions happening? How are they crafted? Am I looking at the clock? How long am I spending on this? What's really happening? What's the composition? Are they heterogeneous groups? I numbered off 1, 2, 3. You don't know each other, or you're not in the same field. Are they homogeneous groups? Are they 3 or 4? Are they 7 or 8? Are there roles in those groups? We'll cover some of that. And again, those of you that want any more helpful hints on this, one of my colleagues, many of you know, my dear and trusted colleague, Joni Dunlap. She's just fabulous, one of our faculty fellows in the office. Joni and I, 2 years ago, started to craft, and then we've redone it 3 times since, a handout that we call Lightening the Lecture Load. And it's just filled with ideas, should you want more, on getting away from all of my PowerPoints, but what do I actually do that's meaningful? Lightening the lecture load. So let's I'm going to cover a couple of these very briefly. So let's dig into one very, very briefly. But think about, I know you've all participated in, you kind of just did it with me with a little pair share activity. Think about that intentionality. Where do I insert that in the lecture, in the class? Am I just, get together and talk about it, the 3 of you? Or is there a prepared script of questions or prompts strategically aligned with key points of the discussion? We're not just shooting it to get together and talk. It has a rhyme and a reason. It is very intentional. So pair, share, lots of different ways to do it, lots of research out there on the benefits of it, but the things that you can control and choreograph, again, specific questions, specific prompts. The idea, the research says, when it's used effectively, it's designed to maximize students' reflection on their own experiences, explore alternate ways of thinking to connect the topic, and improve analytical skills. That's the real intent for the researchers that studied pair share. So if you're using that, if you're taking up a precious 10 minutes in class or whatever, have you really attended? So be thinking, if you use those group discussions or pair shares or whatever, I would ask you to leave here today thinking about, what are my scripts? What are those questions the best questions? How will that question help reach the goal that I've set for this class? And again, you might do a version where heterogeneously paired groups write and discuss their ideas with a partner before sharing them with the whole group. Is writing important in my class? Well, here's just the easiest way to tuck it in. It's not a writing assignment, not a research paper, but again, one of the hardest skills for students, I'm sure you have seen this, and research has shown, it's synthesis. It's that summary. It is that, I'm seeing the number of heads. You've seen it, you've experienced it. Well, then deal with it. And that's a nice little way to deal with it. So you whip it up, those little pair shares, and put in a writing. And the next one here. I think a lot of you have done jigsaws. I was in one of the most fun jigsaw classes a month or so ago in a public health class that those two instructors, they were co-teaching a class. Boy, they rocked that class. It was so cool. And this was a class of 70 or 80 students at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. Oh, I mean, look at what you already have going against you. But that jigsaw was so well crafted. And again, student engagement. There's so much written about jigsaws. Very, 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 very briefly, you form alike groups that are going to talk about this topic. I pull you together with that portion of the reading or whatever. And I assign a different reading or a discussion topic to each of the alike groups. So groups of, let's say, 4. And then, you're my alike groups. You're going to read and discuss and be ready to teach it then. So you become experts in that one piece of the topic. And then you reconfigure into expert groups that are comprised of 1 member from each of the alike groups. Remember, you've done versions of this in your class. Maybe you haven't done it yourself in your course. I would highly encourage you to think about the literature on jigsaws. It is evidence-based. So again, I'm just giving a couple exemplars of evidence-based strategies that get at step 3. I'm going to move along quickly. And then you see, oh, this is a tough one for us, the instructor, because that's great that I choreographed this. I got really cool readings and I got my groups going. I have ample space, but to put the bang to the buck on it, it's you. The instructor facilitates then a whole group discussion, clarifying, answering questions, guiding the participants towards synthesis. You're the band leader there. And so, boy, if you're going to use this, if there's 44 band leaders, they need skills in how, while this is going on, I'm multitasking. And I'm scribbling some notes as I'm walking around on my iPad or about those points that need to be clarified. Again, being sensitive of your time. Has anyone engaged in activities called process-oriented guided inquiry? The literature calls it the nickname of POGIL, P-O-G-I-L, or maybe it's POGIL. I don't want to mispronounce it. Is it POGIL? No. Okay. I went ahead and stuck in a site here for you because this will be on Google Docs, so they'll have the electronic access to these PowerPoints, correct? Will
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
we can put it in the Google Drive folder for them
For
so that
them.
you can have
So
access.
go there for it. I don't have time now to take you to the site and show you around, but there is a link that I actually put here for you called post-secondary. The whole idea of this approach kind of gets a little bit, someone someone was saying something earlier, I forget who brought up the topic, that was so choreographed that you want students to get to. Boy, that's this approach. Used a lot in the literature, in math and science and engineering kind of classes, some business too. But the whole idea on this, it's group problem solving, I like to say, an example. So the students are working in small groups on a crafted, guided inquiry materials. So those are different. So my job as the instructor has a lot of responsibility. So I've crafted something that this group is going to do and that group and so forth. So it's not exactly a jigsaw, but what happens is the materials supply students with all the data and the information, followed by specific leading questions that, of course, go right back to the goals of this class, designed to guide them towards the formulation of their own valid conclusion. So it's a group activity, and again, check out that link, because this particular, there's parts on this that's more like K-12 classrooms, but go to this one because it's specifically designed for higher ed. And so let me run through another one. Oh, this one is cool. And again, there's the link.
Do you want me to go
It's
there or?
real quickly. It is actually out of George Madison University.
James Madison or?
James Madison or George.
James Mason?
I think it is
There's James Madison. and
James
George
Madison
Mason.
and George Mason. And I think it's George Mason now that I'm thinking of it. I'm
It looks,
forgetting.
it's JMU.
That's
Okay.
James
It's James
Madison.
Madison.
Oh,
I'm
it's
guessing.
James Madison? Okay, thanks. And so they've done a lot of research on this thing that they call the Cornell notes. I see several people nodding their heads. You've used them or you've been trained on them. But again, a nice, can you scroll up a little bit? Scroll down, I'm sorry. Because one of the things I like about this technique that I think is so difficult, again, I love trying to come up with activities that help my students synthesize and summary. Because it's not all over the board. It's,
I used to teach a course in study skills and time management. And I tell my students, I teach this at the beginning of my freshman courses now. I spend a day on study skills also. I tell them that the only people that ever get offered study skills and time management courses are the honor students and the probation and suspension students. And so the other 75 are probably 80% of it.
like, figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
You figure it out.
I know.
But again, that may be a technique that is not at all the study skills course,
Yeah.
but it is a technique you are using. It is a strategy. It helps students stay engaged. All that great research by Medina on how the brain works and what learners need to do to stay engaged. Here's a nice activity. Thanks. I'm going to jump right. Thank you so much for steering that for me, Amy. And so with that, another strategy that I would just like to highlight real quickly for you is after guided notes. Oh boy, well, we've all talked about different versions of flipping and hybrid, and that's what you'll be doing. And you're using online instruction. And should you be asked why, or you have some naysayers in the department that you might want to encourage along, it is because the research has shown opportunities for content exposure prior to class with students completing essential lower level cognitive skills. So have you really thought about what you're giving them beforehand, and not just beforehand on day one, if it is this combination of hybrid all the way along, and we're coming into class, in-class activities, if our precious time together is really focused on higher level cognitive skill development, it gets towards that application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation, and creation, supported by both peers in some of these activities and instructors. So have you given thought to what's coming in online, what's coming in before we meet face-to-face? The other thing that I would highly encourage is that you all really be thinking about Bloom's questioning skills
We're
as
gonna
you're
talk
doing it.
more, I think, tomorrow
About
about
Bloom.
blooms and.
That's what I thought. Excellent. And so, again, you'll hear much more about it tomorrow. If nothing else, please commit to audio taping yourself in your class. And you go back and you start matching up the questions that are they all questions that ask students, so what's the name of that? What are they these level, are they those level? Please audio tape yourself. I commit to it. I hate doing it. I really hate videotaping myself. I do it once a year, and I'll look at it and I'll think, God, you're short. Like, duh, you know, color in your hair, but it's so helpful. So a couple more quick slides, and I'm running a couple minutes over.
No problem.
Oh, the working together. Again, I don't think we have necessarily a session on this over camp. The Center for Faculty Development can certainly help you. We're an email away. If you're thinking about maximizing those group encounters, team projects, cooperative learning, collaborative learning, different people call a lot of that different things. Boy, there's a lot of literature on it. So if you are doing that in your courses, when you get into your planning time in these next days, I really encourage you to critically analyze that group project. And I give you some ideas of the different.
Sarah, back over here, is sort of our resident group work interest person expert, so she's a great resource as well for online ways to do group work online.
Fabulous, great, thank you, good. And I'll be back just for a few minutes. I had a half-hour session to chat with you on Thursday morning about differentiation. Between now and then, I'd like you to think about that, and I'd like you to come with an idea of a way that you have differentiated your instruction in courses. And in closure then, as we move on, as I mentioned to you, the literature in learning continually is concerned with and supports that notion of summary and closure and synthesis. And so I really ask you to think about your own closure. What, at the end of the class, I hope you're allowing that precious 5 minutes or online activity that deals with some way to synthesize. And this one, so easy and been around forever, the 3, 2, 1. And you whip it up. You change whatever the prompt is that goes with the 3, 2, 1. So for example, as we leave this first session today, what are the 3 stages to backwards design? Anybody? Throw out the stages. Yeah, what's a stage?
Goals.
The goals.
How you know they've learned something.
The assessment. And third, now we get to those activities and strategies. So again, I'm walking away very clear, very synthesized. Here's 3 stages to backwards design. Bang, bang, bang. What are 2 benefits to backwards design? Anyone?
I'm going to throw this out there. You can have your entire class designed before the semester even starts.
Ah, okay. Good. That's a benefit. What's another benefit?
Purposeful.
Yeah, forget my bullseye. You're going right to the bullseye. Yeah, good. And how about I leave this with all of you. I do leave you and ask you after just an hour together to articulate one aim you have for enhancing the learning instruction and experiences for your course. So we just quickly ran through a couple, but walk away with at least one. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Great. We're going to take a 5-minute pause for the bathroom for a moment to digest, to ask any questions, and we'll get set up for, we're moving right into talking about course mapping, which is sort of, we we purposefully designed our curriculum that way because your question about a way to share this and be transparent without having to do it for days on end, a map is a great way to do that. So we're going to dive in a few minutes.
All right,
Fabulous.
thank you. All righty, so
Yeah, and I will all pop this on into their drive folder.
that's great.
Back
So
onto
then
that
remind
now,
them
so
they
feel
have
free
access
to-
to those 2 links.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm not sure if I put, I think I did, if I put other links inside my differentiation one,
Oh, sure.
but you have it as well.
Oh, great.
All
Okay,
right.
that's great. Yeah.
Good, okay. So this will all be in about 3 days.
Yes.
I'm going off to a meeting that starts at noon, so I'm gonna go read emails for a few minutes.
Well, we interact a lot with Dawn.
Okay.
Literally every student, year one. gets
Go to
involved
questions or
in
comments?
all
Okay,
of us,
yeah.
it's very foundational.
Yes.
That you
So apparently
wanted
our
to
curriculum is
tell
very
us regarding
similar.
differentiation when I get there on
So-
Thursday, you know, but a quickie, so, all right? Thank you. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that great organization. Also,
So we don't usually.
see you all over line density events and also content,
And so.
food,
Yeah.
and frequency.
We try.
We did one
Okay,
training.
thanks.
where they
Awesome,
did
thanks.
Skills training and they're like, oh my God, this is so basic.
Uh-huh.
Because of what they go through.
Right.
Your program.
Right. Yeah, right. I started at CU as a standardization.
Oh, really?
For training over uses and just
Yeah.
at that basic level.
Yeah.
One of my goals is like.
And actually, that was the first
Uh, Right, like.
Yeah.
But all my
And
love
then
education
my
navigators.
son turned out to be a visual learner. So I was able to understand my son and how
Do you still work with the kids? I do. I'm actually starting to phase out this year because, my role at IC is running
Oh, okay. So were you doing those Saturday events, not the mock?
Were you in that
Yeah.
program?
Yeah.
I was connected at home, but I